Hello, Paul here. It is January 31st, 2023 in Nashville, Tennessee. And what we're looking at here is a picture of my garden. And it's about 30 degrees out. I saw, I think, a little snow in the forecast today. And as you can see, it's very wet and very dead looking in some respects. You can see the what is that? These dead crops here that we had going in the summer, and right here, and you can see this is where we had just an incredibly lush garden in the fall, but now it's gone pretty dormant. There are some plants that are alive and thriving, and that's always exciting to see. But what happens in the winter, like in the end of January, I get this tremendous urge to grow things. I think that's sort of built into me, and I'll explain why I think that is, and you might have your own ideas on this, and that's fine. But I think it really comes from what I see here in the book of Genesis. It says that let's see, I'll highlight it here. In Genesis chapter 2, this is in the Bible, verse 8, and it says that now the Lord had planted a garden in the east, in Eden, and there he put the man he had formed. And so, and in another verse it says that he put us there to tend the garden. And so I have this sort of built-in inclination to want to grow things, and it's quite strong. So much so that in the winter, when I can't really grow things outside, I revert to growing things indoors, and that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to show you my sprouts in my indoor garden. And this is something I grow in the kitchen, really, and it doesn't take up a lot of room. Anyone can do this anywhere in the world if you have a kitchen. And I'm going to show you why it's so economical and so fruitful and so abundant, even without soil or without any kind of equipment or room. You can do this with a countertop and just some ordinary jars, and it's amazing, and it's very, very nutritious, and so I'm going to explain this, but that urge, don't you feel that urge? I get people to grow things. I get people coming up to me all the time talking to me about how they want to do gardening and how they just don't have time and these things, but this is so time efficient and financially efficient. It's just unbelievable, but I think it's hard for a lot of people to tap into, and it's been going really well for me. So I just want to show you some of the things that we do in the kitchen garden. So the first thing I'll show you is I'll switch to the other view here so you can see what I'm holding in my hand. There we go. So here is something that my wife did. So this was a head of lettuce. We ate the lettuce, and well, most of it, except for the bottom. And then we put it in a little pot of water, and it's shooting up new lettuce. Now, this could be planted outside, but it can just be eaten like this. And I have a friend, she recently moved, lovely lady, and she would do a lot of these little projects in her kitchen. You can do it with onions, you can do it with beets, you can do it with so many things, and it's so entertaining, especially for kids. This is like a couple days growth. And you can plant this in a flower pot, like you can have a seed tray. Like they make these 20-inch by 10-inch trays. You can put a little soil in, and just grow lots of these and just eat them. And it's really, really good and exciting. But the thing that I do the most of are these sprouts. And so what these are is lentils. And so I'll hold them up to the camera where you can see them really well. Yeah, there you go. You see how they have little tails on them? And so that's when they're really ready to eat. And so what you'll find is that this is an amazingly nutritious food. And they're really inexpensive to grow, too. So like organic lentils cost maybe, $3 a pound. And so what I do is I fill the jar up with 1 cup. This is a half-gallon mason jar, so it's 8 cups. 8 times 8 is 8 cups times 8 ounces per cup is 64 ounces, and a gallon is 128 ounces, so it's a half a gallon. And And so what I do is I put 1 cup of lentils in here. And so that, that's maybe just like 20 cents worth of lentils. But look how much it fills up. I mean, it's just amazing how much is in here now. And, it's, what has it done? It's now it's almost 5 cups. And if I let this go another couple days, it'll fill the jar with 8 cups. So you've got like an 8-fold increase in food. And this is organic food. And where does that food come from? Well, it comes from the nitrogen in the air and the carbon in the air. So the air, the seeds pull in carbon and nitrogen from the air and create food. So this food's being created out of thin air. How incredible is that? So you start with a cup, and then you end up with maybe 10, 12 cups if you eat like a little bit and each time it fills up. But sometimes I like to eat it, when it's just sprouting and when it's a little more sprouted and so forth. Now, the taste, let me talk to you about taste, okay? Like a lot of my friends, like to eat really super palatable foods. If you go to a drive-through and you order, something like from one of the hamburger franchises or one of the coffee franchises, it's going to be incredibly palatable. I mean, it's going to be so palatable it acts more like a drug than a food. But we know these foods are very dangerous, and we know we're living in a very dangerous food environment. So that's why it's really worthwhile to talk about other types of food that are just highly nutritious. And so so let's talk about taste first, and then we'll talk about nutrition. So if you eat a piece of meat, like say you buy a steak and you cook it and you eat it, and don't put anything on it, no salt, no barbecue sauce, say it's a lean piece of meat and there's no fat, people like to buy the meat with fat because it's really the fat that you're tasting and that you're enjoying and not so much the meat. But if you have a lean piece of meat and you cook it, even if you cook it rare or medium rare, it's not going to be very palatable. It's going to taste like shoe leather. It's the stuff the point I'm making is it's the stuff you put on it that makes it palatable. And meat is expensive, and if we have too much meat in our diet, it'll cause an acid-forming condition in our bodies, which can lead to soreness and things like that. But that's another video. But this is a really, really palatable food if you learn how to flavor it like you would, chicken or meat. So, or fish. And so what you do is just come up with different sauces. You can just take barbecue sauce and dump it on here, or ketchup or mustard. Now, these aren't necessarily the healthiest ways to do it, but it's easy to do. You can put a little, oil and vinegar on it. You can put mustard on it. There's just a million ways to be creative with this food, but it is bland if you eat it alone. But you can get it to taste really good. And so now I'm going to show you the nutritional value of these foods. And so I have a web page here I'll take you to. And so this is, let's get you over there. So this is Cronometer here. I've got the mouse moving there. I think you can see it. And so Cronometer is a way to get a window into the nutrition of what you're eating. And so a lot of foods, you might think are healthy, aren't healthy, and you might think are, really unhealthy, but are good for you. So this is really a great way to really look at your food and see how nutritious it is. And so I'm going to look at lentils here. So I'm going to click on this, and so this is the nutrient profile for lentils. Okay, so a cup of lentils, of sprouted lentils. So you see it says lentil sprouts raw. Okay, and it's a cup, which is hardly anything. I mean, this is mostly air. And so it's very, very little food. And so maybe 20 cents worth of food. And so, but look at the nutritional profile. So it's 82 calories, which is a decent amount of calories. You can see it's mostly carbohydrates. 75% of it is carbohydrates, 21% protein, and 4% fat. And so out of this, you'll get about 15% of your carbohydrates for the day. But look at the nutritional profile of this: the iron, the vitamin C, and the folate and the potassium. And then everyone's interested in micronutrients, because micronutrients are really important, and we're not getting the micronutrients that we need in our food because the soils are so depleted. And this is just scientific fact that we're eating food out of very depleted soils. But something really amazing happens when you eat sprouts. They're 40 to 50 times more nutritious than if you ate the seed like in a lentil soup or something. And 40 to 50 times. That's huge. That's like 5,000% more nutritious if you sprout it than if you cook it. And so let's look at some of these nutrients here. See the carbs, the fiber, but look at these micronutrients: B1, B2, B3, B6, folate, and look at vitamin C, and then look at the look here at the minerals. I mean, these minerals are really hard to come by in a diet, and when you start using Chronometer, you'll see. Look at the manganese, the magnesium and the manganese. Most diets are woefully deficient in these. Phosphorus, potassium. Look at the zinc. Zinc is an amazing thing for fighting, various ailments that people get, and I can't name them because I'll be taken down from my social media, and I've had that happen. Look at these nutrients. Look, everyone's worried about protein. Where do you get your protein? That's always being talked about. But look at all these amino acids that you're getting, the different types of proteins. And this is protein in a very absorbable format. If you cook like a meat or you cook a bean, that rearranges the molecules in a food, and your body has to do the labor of rearranging those amino acids in the form of proteins. It's called these are called proteinaceous wastes, and your body has to reassemble them. But look, this is in a very absorbable format, a very soluble format, and look at all of the different ones. I mean, there's so many of them; they're all there, and it's just incredible. And that's just 1 cup of lentil sprouts. Now let's look at the broccoli sprouts. So I'm clicking there, and there we go. So 4 ounces of broccoli sprouts. That looks like this. Okay, these aren't quite ready yet, so they're going to get. This is going to get huge. Let's put it on the center camera where you can see it a little better. And so there we go. We'll move this over, and so I'll try to hold this still so you can see it. Come back a little. Are we focusing? Yeah. Okay. So there, it's a little out of focus, but you get the idea. So these broccoli sprouts will get really big. They'll fill the jar, and so this will fill maybe 1.5 times before I, if I were to just grow it. That's pretty amazing. That's a lot of food. So I start with like a 1/4 cup of seeds, and I'll fill this. So 1/4 cup. So filling the jar is a 32-fold increase in volume of food. So I'm talking to all the people that are really struggling financially. 32-fold increase. That's when it fills the jar, and then it'll fill a 1.5 times. So that's like a 48-fold increase in food. And like I said, that new food is coming from the air, from the carbon and the nitrogen in the air. That's really amazing. So not only are you getting 48 times more food, but then that food is 40 times, they say 40 to 50 times more nutritious than if you ate just the broccoli seeds alone, which no one eats broccoli seeds, but that's a bit of a, you eat lentils, you might cook lentils, but you wouldn't eat broccoli seeds alone. But so maybe that's a 1,600-fold increase in the volume of nutrition from a 1/4 cup of broccoli seeds. Now, broccoli seeds were patented as a chemotherapy at one point. That's what I heard and I read about. but the patent was overturned because it's a naturally occurring substance, and they generally don't like to patent things like that. So it's off the charts as far as the nutrition it has. It has a chemical in it called sulforaphane, that's off the charts, nutritious, and it's got a lot of really amazing properties. It tastes okay. You know, just put a conventional salad dressing on it until you get used to it. You know, it'll take about a week or two to get used to this kind of food. So just doctor it up, with whatever you do, and whatever you got to do to get it in your body. And so, yeah, let me show you the nutrition of this food. It is amazing. So, we'll go down here. Let me change the screen here. Okay, so I click on the broccoli sprouts. I go down, and you see the macros here, macronutrients, and nothing dramatic there. It's 65 calories. You see that here. But look, it's such a small amount. We're talking 4 ounces of this, which is hardly anything. What you're seeing is lots of fiber, lots of iron, calcium. Vitamin A is 75%. Vitamin C is 89%. Vitamin B, 12. A lot of people are deficient. Meat eaters and vegans and vegetarians deficient in vitamin B12. But look how much it is here. It's amazing. And then look at your carbohydrates here on the left. But look at these vitamins. I mean, it's just amazing. Look at the vitamin E. The vitamin K is off the charts, and that's a very important vitamin. Do some Google searches on vitamin K. You'll see it's an amazingly important vitamin that many people are deficient in. Look at the micronutrients. Look at the selenium here, 103%. Look at these magnesium, iron, calcium, protein, not much protein. But if you were to increase the amount, you'd see a lot of these things would go up. Like, say, this is what I'll eat in a day. I'll eat about 16 ounces of this, and you'll see this thing just go bananas. You see the protein start to come in here, and look how much protein. All these amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins, very bioavailable source of protein. So a lot of us are athletes. We want to run faster, and we want to jump higher. And who doesn't want to feel better? I know you might be giving up some things to eat food like this at the beginning, but I'll tell you, it just takes about a week to get used to it. And I promise you, when you really start to get serious about nutrition, amazing things happen to your physiology, to your body. I lost 80 pounds, and my sports are better than. I'm 61 years old. When I play sports, I'm better now at playing sports than when I was in my 30s. Probably even better than in my late 20s. And I'm not a great athlete. I'm not like a gifted athlete. But I just want to feel good and be able to fit my clothes and to not be lugging around 80 pounds. That was hard. So I'm going to show you how to do this, and I'm going to show you how to do it on a budget, and it's very easy. And so what I do is I take a jar, and I'm going to switch views here. I take a jar that looks like this. It's a mason jar, a half-gallon mason jar, and I put a lid on it. And so this lid has a screen. It's the center screen. So it has a screen that I buy. You can buy these off of Amazon or whatever, and you can make one. And then you have a lid. And so you put the seeds in. I usually put a cup of seeds, the bigger seeds like the lentils and the mung beans. Now the broccoli seeds, I'll put a quarter cup, or the alfalfa seeds. And then what you do is you put the seeds in, you put the cover on, and then you fill it with a little water, about that much, maybe more if it's like a zucchini bean or a garbanzo bean, and then you soak it overnight. So you leave it on the counter overnight. So we basically do this in 2 12-hour cycles. So So say I'm doing it at night before I go to bed. I put the seeds in, I fill it about halfway with water, and I leave it overnight. And in the morning, I tip it out in the sink, and then I rinse it with some water, dump it out again, and then I tap the top to make sure that the air is able to go in. If you don't have a fancy lid, you can just take the top off and just lean it on the counter. Maybe I'll put a plate under it, and just so it's tipped just a little bit, so all the seeds are in the back, and then the water's running out. You don't want them sitting in water. And then you need to have a lot of airflow coming in here. You can take the top off to do that if you want to. And then you rinse it in the morning and in the evening. So like when you're waking up and getting ready for your day, and then when you're going to bed, getting ready to go to bed. So those are the 2 times you touch it, and so you rinse it. So the first time you soak it for 12 hours, and then you rinse it every 12 hours. And a lot of seeds don't. If you do it every 24 hours, they work fine. Like fenugreek and lentils, green lentils, they're surefire. You won't have any problem with them. The other seeds like the broccoli and the alfalfa and some of the other seeds are a little fussier. You really need to do it twice and even 3 times a day. You can't rinse it too much. It's good to, but just don't let it sit in the water. So you've got to tip it forward. The seeds are in the back. And I guess what it looks like when it's drying. So what I do is I rinse it, and then I tap it down like that, tap the top to let the air flow because it'll stick to the screen, and then just sit it on the counter, like just tip it a little bit, but not so much that all the stuff falls forward. So in the back like that, and so there you go, and that's all you do. And so these are some of the things that I've been doing lately. This is mustard seed, which yellow mustard seed, which is not real spicy, because you don't want too much spice. It's a bit hard to eat a lot of something that's really spicy. This is the Hippocrates mix. So the Hippocrates Institute is a leader in sprouting, and they do it for to fight disease. They have a clinic to fight it, but it's the Hippocrates Institute in West Palm Beach, Florida, and I just visited there, and I got a bag of this. And that's their blend, okay? I'll stick it in there. You can see all sorts of things in there. It's azuki beans, mung beans, fenugreek, green lentils, and so that's that one. And then fenugreek is a really important food. It's allegedly used to support hormonal balance. So for men, that might mean better male hormones. At my age, guys are really worried about. When I talk to the guys at the gym, they're always talking about their hormone levels. I'm sorry if that's too much information. And then they give this in India. They give fenugreek to nursing mothers that are having trouble producing milk, and so it's been an Ayurvedic medicine that's been a big deal for centuries, and so. But it tastes good. It smells great. It just smells really nutty, as they say. I hate to overuse that term, but one of the things that I should talk about with regard to sprouting is enzymes. So enzymes are just amazing molecules. You can read about enzymes and watch videos on it, but an enzyme will take an input and change it, like chemical input, and change it into another chemical, really fast. And the enzyme molecule itself will shape shift thousands of times a second, changing chemicals from one chemical to another. And it's an incredible thing, really. I mean, it's far beyond human understanding, my understanding anyways. But you can do a lot of reading. And so these foods are loaded with enzymes, and as we get older, our bodies don't produce as many enzymes. That's one of the reasons we really need to have more enzymes. So this is a way to do it. And so I'm going to look now at some of the ways to do this economically. So you can just find one of these in your recycling bin, and just use this. Put organic green lentils, a cup in there, soak them overnight, rinse them twice a day. You might have to pour them off, or use something to block the water so they don't. Or pour them into a strainer. but you can pour the water out without dumping them out. It is possible, or pour them into a cloth. Or you can, get a little fancier and use these. Oh, and so one thing to note, the cover is really useful. So you can use this jar to sprout them. And I'd use glass and not plastic because the enzymes can break things down. They're powerful, but glass is better. And so when they are ready, you can put them in the fridge or take them in a lunch. So you could put some, like for your kids going to lunch maybe, the friends will laugh at them, I know, or you take it to work and they'll laugh at you. But it's a good conversation starter because, everyone's falling off their New Year's resolutions right around the end of January, right? And so, why not kick it into high gear? So, you can put, some lentil sprouts in here and just flavor it with anything, peanut butter, tahini, ketchup, mustard, whatever you like. Barbecue sauce if you want to, I don't recommend that, but, just whatever it takes to get you to get used to the new diet. And I eat them plain now that I'm used to them, and my body really craves them. But you can put the cover on to get them in your lunchbox or your lunch bag. But when I'm leaving them in the fridge, I leave the cover off because these are living foods and they like to breathe. That's really strange and unusual. But that's how I like to do it in the fridge. I don't cover them. I take these screen tops, I take them off when I put them in the fridge. So there you go. Any single mom, if you're broke, a lot of my friends are sick, and so they've paid out all their money to medical bills, and so this is a way to claw yourself back from poverty and poor health. So if you're on your back, sick and broke, you can claw yourself back with this modality, just sprouting. It's amazing what it can do, and it's almost free food. But isn't God wonderful? He gives us a way to produce nutrient-dense food in the middle of this dangerous food environment where you see all these chemicals being added to the food. And, so many of my friends are getting cancer and getting diseases that we think and we have a hunch that these are food-borne diseases because cancer we know it's caused by nutrient deficiency and toxicity. So this is a way to get food that's nutrient-dense, that's organic, not toxic, and what a glorious thing. I mean, what great provision. In an indoor garden with no space, hardly any money, and you can get, all the supplies you need out of the recycle bin. I mean, how amazing is that? Isn't that incredible? So I'm going to take you through some of my supplies. One of the things I like to use is a colander and a cup measure. It just keeps me from having to spill everything, which you know how that goes. And then, some of the foods, this is my yellow mustard, and I'll just start going through it here. And there's so many different things. Oh, so when I'm traveling, business trips and traveling is perfect time to blow your diet and just, traveling's really hard on the body, whether you're flying or driving, but this is a sprouting bag. And, you can sprout in a bag in a hotel room. And I just got back from a trip, and that's what I was doing. I was in the hotel room. I was using this bag. I'll give you a better view of it here. I was using this bag, and it's a little, you can wash it if you're squeamish about that. But it does get a little stained, and everything gets stained when you sprout. I mean, these are powerful enzymes. I mean, these, just to give you an idea how powerful these things are. You see how these fenugreek seeds are sticking to clean glass on the inside of this jar? I mean, they're like, geckos. They can go right up smooth walls. I mean, it's incredibly powerful what's going on here. And I don't have great insight into that. But that's why the coloration of the bag. But so in a hotel room, on a business trip, on an airplane, I've taken these bags across the world, and I have my sprouts on the go while I'm traveling. So I'm not waiting in line. They don't confiscate them at the airport, in the TSA checks. I can just take these in a lunch bag, and if they do want to confiscate them, I can just dump them out and keep the bag. But I've never had a problem with it. And you can put avocado on it. You can just buy some salad dressing wherever you are, hopefully some organics, and just put it on there. And if you're not used to the taste, but isn't that amazing? What an incredible thing! You can do this on the road and a business trip. And so What else? Oh, so these are alfalfa sprouts. I'll just go through it all here. These are my green lentils. You know, that's what they look like before you sprout them. You can get red lentils too. Let's see what else is interesting. There's mung beans. Oh, there's just so many things. Garbanzo beans. Oh, broccoli sprouts. This is a really important one. Broccoli sprouts, and you get these from a lot of places. And you can grow these in the garden. So when the spring comes, I'll grow these in the garden and eat the big plants. You know, when they get about that big, I'll just mow them down with a pair of scissors and eat the broccoli greens. And well, what an amazing thing. So now I'm going to talk about something here that, this is a really deep subject. I mean, I know this is a long video, but there's so much more to talk about here. So, let's see. Okay. So back to Genesis. Okay. In verse, I'm going to change the, there we go. So in verse 7, this is so amazing and just blow you away. So then the Lord formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. Okay, now you might not believe this, but you know, a lot of people don't believe the Bible. You know, they think, you know, they have their own thoughts and their own religions, but just there's something really amazing here I've just got to tell you about. And I'm really excited about it. So what we're finding now, what science is discovering probably in the last few years, this is very new, is that we have these organisms that live in our gut. And so in your stomach are 5 trillion, that's what they say, I've never counted them, 5 trillion microorganisms. And so, you know, we tend to think of parasites, and oh, it's awful. And we live in an age where we're sterilizing everything after this latest, scare we've had with, different viruses and bacteria, whatever it was. And I can't say the name because no one they'll take my video down again. So everyone's very afraid of germs and very germophobic. But what we're finding is that the organisms in our gut are how we assimilate our food. So like this is the yogurt cup I was telling you about. And so if you look on the back of this, let me get this, right here. So on the back of this, you'll see all the nutritional facts. You see that? And so you see here all these nutrition, all these vitamins, minerals, macronutrients, micronutrients. And so what's in there is, you know, certain like number of vitamins and minerals and macronutrients, proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. But the way that your body absorbs those macro and micronutrients is through the organisms in your gut. So you will not get your money's worth out of that particular food item unless you have those organisms in your gut, because that's the vehicle by which the food is assimilated into the body. So it's like having a check that you never cash. You might have the check on your desk, but if you never cash it, it's not going to do you any good. And so if you don't have the microorganisms in your gut, you're not going to get nourished. That's really important research, and a lot of people are doing studies, a lot of science around this. And so, but in the soil, there's something else very analogous going on. So in the soil, there are all these organisms, and the organisms are the vehicles by which the plants absorb the nutrients. So without soil organisms, you don't have plants with the nutrients. And the very deceptive thing about plants is they can look really good, but have no microorganisms, micronutrients in them. So you can have a gorgeous looking carrot or piece of celery, and it's void of nutrients, and it tastes awful too, because the trace minerals and nutrients are what make the food taste good when you're getting it from a garden. And we've all had that experience where we, ate a fruit or a vegetable and it just tasted amazing. Maybe it's the first asparagus of the year. of the spring, or maybe it's the first apple harvest, and that first fruit is just unbelievably palatable. And that's because usually it's a phenomenon where our bodies need the micronutrients. But a lot of the foods that we eat, that you find in the store, do not have the micronutrients, but they look the same as foods that do. And so it's very hard to tell. The best way to tell is by flavor. But when you start growing your own food and you have a window into flavor and nutrition by having your own garden, like we have the garden that we have here, that's an amazing thing. And so you get a window into that, and you start to understand those microorganisms in the soil make really nutritious plants that make really tasty foods, that make really nutritious foods that make you feel better. And it's a long direction, it's a long chain of causality, but if you can just sort of get the idea, it'll become clearer as you go. And so, but look at this Bible verse. We were formed from the dust of the earth. And so I had a friend, and I was explaining this to him, and I didn't have really words. So my friend Chris is a very renowned geneticist and scientist. And I was just talking to him at church, and he said, well, Paul, that makes perfect sense, because God created man from the dust of the earth. So now I have language for this, and I have a framework for the ideas that I'm putting forth here. And so what happens is, when you get the food from the garden, I don't wash it, I don't sterilize it. So the food that you get at your grocery store, if it's a grocery chain, has been sterilized, because it's in a supply chain with meat and fish and pork and all sorts of other foods that are quite pathogenic. And so, but since my garden doesn't have, these vectors for pathology, like we're not like putting manure in, and we're not like having, flesh. It's really flesh and feces. So manure is used in a lot of gardens, not in mine, but it's in flesh. That where they, we have chickens, in there, and you have grazing animals and so forth. So we have it fenced off to keep the animals out, and so the we don't have those types of pathogens, and so I don't wash the food and sterilize the food before I eat it. So and that makes a big difference. And so, and people like Josh Axe wrote a book called Eat Dirt, and so people are seeing that it's good to ingest these soil organisms. I know it's like eating dirt, it seems crazy, but those organisms in the soil are very similar to the organisms in our gut. And we can absorb these organisms by walking barefoot through the garden. And that has a lot of other properties, but these homeostatic soil organisms, HSOs, they come in through the soles of our feet and nourish us. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but that's what we're finding. And then there's so many other things about, the electrical energy dissipating. So we feel better when we walk barefoot in the garden, because we're losing all those electrons that tend to build up as sort of a, visualize static electricity, but it's something different. And it's called earthing and grounding, and that's part of the garden experience too, which I miss in the winter, honestly. But so that's really important to understand the microbiome from the point of view of Genesis chapter 2 and verse 7, that the Lord formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. So when we have these micronutrients from the dust of the ground, and we understand this whole complicated process, that we start to feel better and we start to have more life and so forth. So I thought that was pretty amazing. And then in verse 8 we see, now the Lord God had planted a garden in the east in Eden, and there he put the man he had formed. It's just so basic, and it might seem really subtle, but when people come to my garden, after about 10 minutes, they make comments like, wow, this is really amazing. Wow, I feel so much. I came in here feeling so stressed. Now I feel so much better. I feel so much calmer and at peace, and their countenance totally changes. And there's something really spiritual or physical or emotional that goes on in the garden. But when you think about it, in the garden you see God's abundance. He's creating food out of thin air. And then you see his provision. You see his provision, that he's creating food out of thin air. You see his abundance. You know, the biggest problem we have in the garden is we can't find people to take the food. You know, we have these volunteers come, and we have, you know, the seeds and the soil. We have great soil, you know, because we're by a creek, and it's like 5 feet of chocolate. It's just amazing soil. We have a nice well, 300-foot deep well with great water, and we have, you know, good equipment. We have tillers, and we have, you know, whatever we need, you know, rakes, and I like to make my own tools, and we don't really work that hard, but we have so much food that we can't give it all away. Isn't that amazing? So every time I see people, I'm like, free food, and you know, and they come and they take it, and the more they take, the faster it grows. It's like cutting the grass. You know, the shorter you cut the grass, the faster it grows. And so that's what happens when in the garden. So like if I was to cut this lettuce off at the top, tomorrow it would grow back even faster. And that's just the nature of God, the nature of the garden. And so emotionally, physically, and spiritually, we have these amazing factors in the garden. And it's just very faith building. You know, and there's so many lessons in the garden. You know, like when Jesus told the parable of the soils, the second soil was the soil that fell, the seed that fell on the rock. And when the sun came up, it withered because it has no root. And, you know, it might seem like, you know, of course, Jesus is talking about the kingdom of God, and he's talking about, you know, being fruitful in our spiritual lives. But incidentally, what he's saying is that root has to go down for the plant to cool itself in the hot sun. And then, but conversely, in the winter, it's the plants with the deep roots that are still alive. Like I have turnips out there. Some are dead and some are alive. We have these beautiful purple top turnips. But the purple top turnips that have the deep roots, they're the ones that are alive, because not only did the plants use the root to heat themselves, but to cool themselves. And that's why in the summer, if you go under a tree, there's a microclimate. Yes, you're in the shade and you get a lot of cooling from that. But that tree is actually cooling the air because the deep roots are going down and into the deep into the soil, where it's always about 55 degrees or so. And so it's bringing the moisture in the capillary, by the capillary actions of the tree. It's bringing that moisture up and down and cooling the air around the tree. That's why it's so wonderful. It's like God created air conditioning a long time ago. You just go out and sit under a tree in the heat of the day, and you'll feel warm and get a little rest, you know. And then something else really important here. In verse 9, I'll highlight this. Let's see. Just the first half of verse 9 here. So, the Lord God made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground. I want to highlight it a little further here. Trees that were very pleasing to the eye and good for food. So when God says he created man and put him in a garden, that word garden actually means orchard. And so orchard are trees. You know, there are plants there, I'm sure, but there were trees, like fruit trees, like in Tennessee we grow figs, and we grow pawpaws, we grow mulberries, apples, pears, peaches, you know, all the stuff we have growing here. And you know, trees produce an abundance of fruit, don't they? And then you can dry them, you can freeze them if you want to eat them in the winter. And so, but just a lot of this is fruit, and fruit is very sweet and, you know, easy to grow. But and I can't really grow fruit indoors in the winter. You know, we're talking about kitchen gardens here, but you can sprout things. You can start sprouting your pepper plants, your tomato plants, your various seeds that you want to grow, like pawpaw seeds, and, you know, just these different kinds of seeds. Peaches, you can grow them indoors in the spring. In the spring, and they're true to type. So there you go. Um, and then we know, the second half of verse 9, there was a tree in the middle of the garden, the knowledge of good and evil. And so we know the story of Adam and Eve and how they ate the forbidden apple, and so God cursed the garden. And so in the garden, we have, it's by the sweat of our brows that we will toil in the garden. So it's hot in the garden, and there are bugs, and it's hard. And we have these weeds that that's part of the process. And one of the ways that man tries to deal with the weeds is with herbicide, and that's causing all sorts of problems in our guts. These herbicides that break the shikimate pathway and cause all sorts of gut problems. And so there's all sorts of cancer happening, and because of these herbicides. But the sprouting is a great way to not have to deal with so many weeds, and to not have to deal with the sweat of your brow. With just getting hot in the garden. The garden's challenging. It's a challenging environment, unless you get out there early in the morning and stay out at night. But that's enough Bible study there. But here we see in just this much of the Bible, we see so many amazing things. And there's much more we can talk about just in the context of health, nutrition in the garden. And the Bible's just really useful. And so that's an amazing thing. So just a review here, we've got Chronometer, and then I have a YouTube channel that you can check. It's called Permavations. You'll see the name of it right there, Permavations, and I put all this kind of stuff up there if you want to watch some more videos. And then I have one on a YouTube channel on BitChute, because I can't say a lot of things on YouTube. I'm censored. So it's called His Glory, HISGLORY, one word. And so you're welcome to go there and check out some videos. And then this Saturday, it'll be first Saturday in February, we're going to start our garden meeting. And we meet Saturdays at 9 a.m. and Wednesdays at 6 p.m. And so you're welcome to join us for that. This weekend I'm going to talk about sprouting, and I'll put that in the comments where I post this video, because not everyone's going to watch an almost hour-long video. So I don't know when this thing will cut off, but it might cut off here any time. But please join us for I'm going to do a demonstration in my kitchen on sprouting, and we'll talk about a lot of other things. I have a lot of exotic fruits in there, and that's what this video right here with the avocado. See the avocado movie? I'm going to talk about red alame fruit and lots of other things. But so I think we'll wind it up here. Put any questions you have in the comments below, and or message me, and let me know if you want to come Saturday, because we only have a limited amount of space, and we usually have a lot of people come to these, and we'll try to have someone shoot a video from the Saturday meeting too, because it's a little too wet to get out in the garden, and so I want to get things started, because next week it could be 90, 80, maybe 70 degrees and beautiful. We could be out there just full swing planting, but I want to get the kitchen garden video in, because it's so crucial, and you can do this all year round. This kitchen garden is an amazing thing. But thank you for watching, and thank you for hanging out with me. And I know there's a lot of stuff going on here, but I promise you, if you can just take on some of these truths, I have seen amazing benefits in my own health, in weight loss, and athleticism, running faster and jumping higher. Not that I'm like, super athlete or anything, but for someone my age, I'm just doing better than I've ever been doing. And I have more strength and more energy, more vitality, and my relationship with God, spiritually, I've just really, married a lot of the science and the knowledge that I'm learning to what I read in the Bible, and that's just very synergistic and very inspiring for me, just as a person. And so that's really encouraging. And so I think, I hope that you benefit from this, and that we can really form a community around, these kinds of truths, and really prosper and grow and find life together in just a really simple part of life, what we eat, and how, what we do with our time, what we grow, and whatever. I know it's hard to put it all in a nutshell, but let's form a community together. You can message me and tell me what you're learning, what things going on in your life, and so we'll wind it up again there. And thanks for watching, and I'm going to stop recording now. God bless, and over and out. Bye-bye.